Now, the illicit drugs and substances often used could be classified into 5 broad categories. These are narcotics, stimulants, depressants, are also sedatives, hallucinogens, and cannabis. That's what is called marijuana. Now, these categories, of course, include many drugs that are legally produced and prescribed by medical personnel, as well as those that are, of course, illegally produced and sold outside of medical channels.
That's true, quickly. For statistics, people get from time to indicate that about 66% of high school students use drugs. And the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency, NDLEA, reports also shows that over 37% of people in the Northwest Zone use drugs, with over 6 million bottles of codeine, of course, as well as medication, said to be sold on a daily basis in that part of the country. While this rise in cases of drug abuse in Nigeria remains of great concern, and experts in the studio today will be taking a look at this issue with us as we try to prefer solutions, or likely solutions, to actually bring down these rising incidents as we have observed.
Oh, well, that's right, Blessed. I mean, there's no question about it that not every chap you see on the street is normal.
Certainly.
That's right.
So start showing some tendencies that it's on the other side.
Yeah, physical manifestation of the effect of substance or drug abuse is right there. I mean, it's not everybody who is also who's on the road that is apparently normal.
That's what we see some incoherent speeches and some odd behaviors being exhibited.
That's right.
Indefinitely.
Yeah.
Well, it's on this great note that we welcome you to Good Morning Nigeria today, hoping that we will have a society that is really drug-free, at least drug abuse-free. My name is Blessing Abu, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to today's edition of the program.
And I'm Kingsley Osadolo. I join Blessing in welcoming you also to this edition of the program, being broadcast as usual on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. It's a live program, in the course of which we'll bring you our usual companion segments. These, of course, include newspaper review, business, arts and entertainment, as well as sports. So in the meantime, we are having the morning news now, and here is Lydia Bassi. Hi, Lydia.
Good morning, Kingsley. Good morning, Nigeria, and here is the news. The federal government has solicited the support of the Organization of Islamic Countries, OIC, for the ongoing efforts at rehabilitating the areas badly devastated by the Boko Haram insurgency. Speaking at his meeting with the Secretary General of the OIC, Mr. Iyad Amin Madani, President Buhari urged the organization to send a fact-finding mission to the ravaged states of Borno, Yobe, and Adamawa states to see the damage done by terrorists. The President told Mr. Madani that the fact-finding visit will help the OIC to determine the scope of assistance it can offer to Nigeria for the rehabilitation and resettlement of internally displaced persons. President Buhari also challenged the OIC to act urgently in support of the restoration of peace, law, and order to Libya, which he said had been breeding the terrorists causing mayhem in West and Central African countries following the fall of the Gaddafi regime. Meanwhile, President Muhammadu Buhari has performed Umrah, otherwise known as the Lesser Hajj, an important religious activity of immense value and reward in Islam. State House correspondent Adamu Sambo reports that prayers for divine intervention in the affairs of Nigeria took center stage. Africa should not expect the core resources to propel her development to come from foreign partners, no matter how pleasant and beneficial in nature or influence. State House correspondent Jide Onifade reports that the Vice President Inu Shimbajo gave the advice while declaring open the Habitat Tree African Regional Meeting in Abuja.
From one of chaos, informality, and squalor, into a positive one of planning, tranquility, and environmental sustainability. In doing so, we can glean lessons from other parts of the world, while remaining fully conscious of Africa's commonalities and peculiarities, and using them to propel our urban agenda.
The civil society organizations are to be involved in the budgeting process to ensure inclusiveness and transparency in the nation's financial dealings. This followed the adoption of the report of the Senate Committee on Civil Society and Diaspora. National Assembly correspondent Abdullahi Garba Birnin Kudu reports that the Senate also received the report of its Ethics Committee, which recommended warrant of arrest on former EFCC chairman Ibrahim Lamurde.
Lawmakers said most of the documents and openness, and also as we observe, the budget is not only just for us in Parliament, it also gives an opportunity for the general public, and that is why it's important on the executive part that these budgets come early enough. The lawmakers also.
The plan by the Federal Road Safety Commission to implement the compulsory use of speed limit device in Nigeria has been criticized by the House of Representatives. National Assembly correspondent Ignatius Nkwo reports that the House has therefore resolved that the policy be suspended.
A technology that not only outdated, but it will create security challenges for our people.
The federal government has expressed satisfaction with the desire of the Lagos State government to revive the National Museum Onikon in Lagos. Anthony Forson reports that the Information and Culture Minister Lai Mohammed stated this shortly after a facility tour of the museum.
To ensure that no bureaucracy will stand in the way of making this a reality. Even for the sake of those children, you can see they are eager to learn about their heritage. You can see it's a busy place. I'm told that some days we have about 600 students coming in here. We must encourage them, we must make this another hub.
The oneness of Nigeria that we have always sought, and that is what has played out here, where the minister has come and met with the governor, and they have decided to take what is a national treasure and asset and put it where it is supposed to be.
4 persons have been confirmed dead and few others injured in an accidental explosion that occurred at the police anti-bomb squad office, Jimeta, Yola, in Adamawa State. A statement from the National Emergency Management Agency said the incident, which occurred at noon, also affected nearby buildings such as a post office, Jimeta Primary School, Old Nitel Building, and some residential houses. The bombs were those confiscated from insurgents and awaiting destruction. The National Human Rights Commission has inaugurated a special panel to investigate incidents of hate speeches and violence that preceded the 2015 general elections. Executive Secretary of the Commission, Professor Ben Angwe, who says the development is a core mandate of the Commission, announced that those in breach will be prosecuted.
Taking that step that will ensure that each and every identifiable person in this country who partook in electoral violence or hate speech will be held accountable, will be made to explain, and where that explanation is not forthcoming, will be punished.
Uttering hate speeches violate rights. They are not just issues of elections alone. Because when you make speeches that tend to violate the rights of other contestants to elections, they become human rights issues. Using foul language to gain support or vote is also criminal and punishable under our various criminal laws and penal codes.
Former President of Nigeria in the Second Republic, Shehu Aliyu Usman Shagari, was 91 years old yesterday. Jabi Ilela Dabere reports that special prayers were offered to mark his birthday at his residence in Sokoto.
A very honest, dedicated, a man of honor, a man of integrity, a man you will be very proud to work with. Shehu Usman Aliyu Shagari is a prestigious leader who has achieved a lot.
And that's the news. Back to Blessing and Kingsley for more on Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you very much, Lydia Brasi. We'd also like to congratulate former President Shehu Shagari on his attaining the age of 91, at least from all of us on Good Morning Nigeria. This is Good Morning Nigeria. We'll take this break to bring some messages, and it will be time for our business package on the program today.
Of an active shooter, that might be a terror attack. At such times, always remember 3 action words. 1. Hide. Report. Don't try to run towards the terror scene to save the situation, because there might be a second bomb blast or another attack. Run far away and take cover. Make sure you are safe first. Yes, it is in our nature to sympathize over the hurt, but remember, only trained personnel can help in such situations. When in a secured environment, promptly call relevant authorities and help will come. For anonymous reporting, call 09630-3250-5 or 0813-2222-106. If you see something, say something. Nigeria unite against terrorism. This message is brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
Why are you filming, Mommy? To help people stop getting sick. People think it's the ever-changing weather during Harmattan that makes them sick. Actually, it's the germs. Dettol protects from up to 100 illness-causing germs, including flu.
Dettol, endorsed by the Nigerian Medical Association.
Hello! Would you like some water? It's cold, especially for you.
Which era are you living in? We have a fridge.
When everything else in your house is from the present, then why are your toilet cleaning methods from the past? Harpic, all-in-one for you. Compared to other toilet cleaners, Harpic removes top stains, kills all germs, and removes bad odors. For a shining, clean, and fresh toilet.
Wow!
You should also take the Harpic
all-in-one challenge.
You're watching Good Morning Nigeria. It's time for business now. Expert calls for deliberate policies to boost local production and reduce dependence on imported goods for increased employment opportunities. Here's Leah Katung-Babatunde with the details and more in the business news.
Hello and welcome to Good Morning Nigeria Business News. The Nigerian economy has had its fair share of swings occasioned by an unsteady exchange rate in the apparel market, crashing oil prices, as well as ongoing reforms in the nation's financial sector. Considering the effects of these factors on the economy, experts advise Nigeria must embrace deliberate policies that would increase viability in all productive sectors.
Banks should be empowered, and they should open more of these agri-bank branches everywhere in the country to help farmers, and then help to industrialize small. When we are talking of industrialization, we are not talking of bringing gigantic plants. Those are white elephant projects. We are talking of there are small plants that can be operated locally. They should be encouraged.
Shitu Muhammad also urged government to make research institutes more marketable so that products from there will be used by local producers and farmers to reduce the burden that comes with importation.
The Agri Ministry have research and development, do they empower them? These universities that are producing this are not empowered. And how do you empower them? If you can find where those plants could be used, those processing machines could be used, instead of going outside to buy a motorcycle and be sharing to our teeming youth, you can empower those research institutes to come up and then develop further those small machineries.
The steady decline in global oil prices and depletion of the nation's reserves have made it imperative for Nigeria to rapidly harness other sectors of the economy to increase revenue. And on local consumption, the Nigerian government says it is on a campaign to encourage local consumption in the hospitality industry. This is with a view to maintaining resources within the economy and boost employment opportunity, as government alone cannot employ the whole labor force. The Minister of Information and Culture, Lai Mohammed, represented by a director at the ministry at an interface with some initiatives of the hospitality industry, said Nigerians should explore the nation's rich human and material resources to promote tourism.
Because we've been talking so much of foreign tourism, but now we're looking at the domestic aspect. So here we know that we can have all these facilities in the country. We don't have to jet out to Dubai or to say we are going to Kenya, when we can just take our holiday and have a kind of secluded, and the atmosphere is very serene and peaceful around here.
So that's how we're going to build a country. We cannot leave the problem for only government alone. So because everywhere in the world, private sector is the driving engine of economic development. I hope Nigeria will keep from that.
And lastly, the Nigerian stock market's all-share index advanced by 0.67% in Thursday's session. Next is a graphic summary of closing figures from the NSE. And that is business this morning. Do have a pleasant weekend.
All right, thank you very much there, Leah Katumba Batunde, for the business package. Now it's time for us to take a look at the headlines in today's newspapers, but that will be after the break.
You are watching NTA, Nigerian Television Authority. For more information and news updates, visit our website at www.nta.ng, or you can follow us on Twitter at NTA News Now, or you can like us on Facebook at NTA Network News. Stay connected on our YouTube channel at www.youtube.com/NTA News Online. Watch our live stream at www.nta.ng/live. NTA, you can't beat the rich.
You're watching Good Morning Nigeria. It's time now for newspapers, and of course, Bayatu Ebi is in the studio already. Welcome you, Bayatu Ebi.
Thank you, Blessing. Good morning, Nigeria.
All right, to start off, front pages, story, of course, that's usually what we start off with. Leadership Summit, we are ready for industrial revolution. This is coming from the governors with many riders, but amongst which is it's not negotiable, says Vice President Oshibaju. Entice investors with incentives. This is coming from Linda Zaya, and also legal framework key. This is coming from Abubakar. There are several other riders, but let me see what Kingsley has as economic issue as well.
Well, yeah, there are a number of other economic stories. The lead story for this day newspaper this morning is on the economy. And it reads, Buhari to convene National Economic Conference in March. And there are two riders to that headline. Job creation, oil prices, forex scarcity to top agenda. And Naira reverses gains, slides to 330 Naira to the dollar. Now that's the lead story for this day newspaper. And then for Daily Trust, it's also an economic copy. It has a kicker. Daily Trust Board of Economists tells Buhari, form economic team now. And the writer says, as president holds conference March 10. And of course, you have a photograph there of some of the members of the Daily Trust Board of Economists. Chairman Jais Bank, very well known, Alhaji Umaru Mutalab. Accountant General of the Federation is represented there, the Chairman of the Board of Economists, Professor Ode Ojo, the Deputy Governor of Gombe State, as well as others who were present. So, Farm Economic Team now, that's the headline from Daily Trust newspaper this morning. And then for the Punch, the lead story is also on the economy with a kicker, economic crisis, writes the Punch. Buhari heeds Soyinka's advice, OK's conference. Details of that can be found on page 2. So, Bayo, let's take this one before we go into politics and other stories.
The economic stories are dominating, and some of them are speculative, and some of them are dovetailing one into the other. You recall that there was this economic summit conference convened by the leadership newspaper group, and for which the vice president made a strong pronouncement about measures and the need to take it to revive the economy. However, there is the speculating aspect which you read that President Muhammad Buhari had heeded the call by Professor Wole Soyinka. You recall that last Thursday at the visit at the Federal Minister of Information to the Honorable Minister of Information, he said there was a need for Nigeria to convoke an economic kind of conference. But this had been preceded as far back as the 65th National Economic Council. And there, it was held in January 28. They had proposed what they call NEC retreat, and it was to discuss the challenges of the economy. And so experts were supposed to be invited from around the world and Nigeria to deliberate. So all this is dovetailing. And you talked about the Naira now coming up from 400 just only end of last week to about 300 now.
330. That's the gains of the last few days. You recall we read out some of those gains of the headlines on the papers Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Those gains have been reversed according to this day newspaper.
Well, one paper is reporting that it's now at 300, and it's reported that Central Bank is claiming credit for its measures that it has put in place, and gradually the speculation, the cloud by the speculation is fading away, and the Naira is gradually finding its appropriate position.
The CBN is gaining. The complaints from the BDC's quarters is on the losses. So forex speculators, BDCs lose 2 billion Naira in 3 days.
Well,
that's one of the items on the front page of the Nation.
They won't tell you what they gain in the era when it has skyrocketed to 400 Naira to a dollar.
That's right. But of course, as we rightly also indicated when we had guests to discuss the issue on the program, a lot of speculative activities had been going on. Recall also, there were concerns, when the Naira fend up that the speculators were going to get back on. So let's see how it goes. I think those who are speculating probably will get their fingers burnt at some point.
Anyway, to other stories now. For the Nation, just above the masthead, you have Sunday Olise quits as Eagles coach. The details you find on page 6. Sunday Olise quits as Eagles coach. I'm sure you have that as well.
No, I don't have that. I'm sure it's a copy that Bayo will speak to in the course of the program. Okay. But let's take other headlines. Of course, you can see on the front page of the Punch newspaper, we already read the story from our various news bulletins. Adamawa explosion kills 4 policemen. Details of that can be found on page 12 of the paper. It's also there as a headline on the front page of Daily Trust, just below the name flag. 4 killed in explosion at Yola anti-bomb headquarters. Details of that on page 12 of Daily Trust. It's not a front page story for this day, but there are other headlines. Oh, rather, it is here in this day, but it comes in as a rider. It says, that's the House of Representatives and Senator Mark condemn Atagu killings as death toll hits 100, and 4 policemen killed in Yola accidental bomb explosion.
Okay, for the front page of the Nation, it's a photograph you get to see there. In ruins, the scene of an explosion at the Adamawa Police Command Anti-Bomb Squad and Motor Traffic Department in Jimeta, Yola, yesterday. Troops rout Boko Haram fighters in multiple clashes. 4 die in accidental explosion at police and bomb facility. All the details on page 6, but that's how the Nation reports it this morning. Bayo?
Yes, the concern is about the clash between herdsmen and the farmers in Agatu local government. The death toll is increasing by the day, and it's been going on for over a year now. The shocking thing was that not quite too long ago, I think it was about a week or so ago, the Inspector General of Police put his finger and said that those headsmen who are causing those mayhem across the country are not from Nigeria. They came from across Chad and Mali, and something has to be done seriously to redress this because it is going on the increase. In fact, the governor of Benue State had to rush and was calling for immediate assistance to remedy the crisis. The unfortunate thing that happened too was improvised explosive device retrieved from insurgents accidentally went off at the police anti-bomb squad in Jimeta Yola. A senior police officer and 4 others were killed, and it's a very sad development. The idea was, I think they probably should have demobilized the device. Somehow, maybe it was not demobilized and then it went off. Somehow it got primed and went off unexpectedly. There's need to caution against such things. The positive development on the war against insurgency is on the Cameroon-Nigerian border, where 23 insurgents were reported killed and 150 hostages released, freed by the combined troops of Nigeria and Cameroon. This was a border town called Kumshe. In fact, it is said that the Boko Haram people had occupied the place for over 18 months, and that place has now been liberated. The other story that you read is about Sunday Ulisse. Sunday Ulisse was engaged on July 23, 2015. He stayed on the job for only 8 months. And yesterday he sent in a letter to the Honorable Minister of Sports and the President of Nigeria Football Federation that it was an honor to play, to captain, and coach for Nigeria. There are indications that the reasons for his resignation is based on his constant illness and advice from his family. However, one thing that will go down for what most people was for his reaction for those who were criticizing for him calling that as insanity.
That's right. Bayo, well, let's move on to other stories. The story of the explosion that went off accidentally in Yola, also I think it's a matter that the police ordnance department will have to work on, because that's a fairly crowded environment, you know, from the many facilities and institutions located in that area. And I think that the earlier these things are done, the better. In other words, once the IEDs are retrieved from Boko Haram terrorists, then you dispose of them as quickly as possible. Don't forget, this is not as catastrophic as what happened in January 2002. You remember at the Ikeja cantonment? Yes, that was in Lagos. Yes.
All right, to anti-graft stories now. The authority has, as Cherry just below the photograph with former President Shehu Shagari's celebration there. Alleged missing 1 trillion naira. Senate declares EFCC ex-boss Lamode wanted. Of course, the details continues on page 2. But to the nation, it's as it's in another way. That's still on anti-graft now. Refund 310 million naira for 23 cars. EFCC tells Uche secondos. With rider, agency rejects PDP chief's offer to surrender vehicles. That story also continues on page 6. Of course, that's right there in the front page of The Nation.
Okay. Let's take this headlines from the foot of the front page of the Punch newspaper. Alleged 1 trillion naira diversion. Senate plans to arrest Lamode. Details on page 8. And then Jonathan's ex-ADC detained on Army's directive. This attributed to the EFCC. Details on page 2. You can find similar stories, of course, on the front page of Daily Trust, also at the foot of the front page, saying Senate orders Lamode's arrest over 1 trillion naira fraud. And then for the budget, Dogara, that's Speaker of the House, March deadline for budget passage sacrosanct. For politics, Bayo, on the front page of Daily Trust, just below the name flag, APC, that's the kicker, uncertainty over Oyegun's fate. Uncertainty over Oyegun's fate, details on page 6. And from the front page of this day newspaper, just at the foot of the front page as well, just on top of the front page strip advert there, INEC fixes Edo and Ondo governorship polls for September 10th and November 26th. Details on page 9. Edo governorship election, September 10th, Ondo, November 26th. Bayo.
Yes, talking about the EFC, the corruption funds, there is a dilemma now that they have to grapple with. The deputy chairman of the PDP, who was arrested for the 23 cars, is now in a dilemma. He has offered to return the 23 cars. On one side, from the storage Kingsley read, those who have the cars are reluctant to release them. And at the end of the EFCC said, no, we don't want the cars. We want the equivalent of the money, 310 million, for which the cars were worth. So, but the EFCC has put some figures together. They say the drive by the EFCC on the basis of the arms deal as well as other sources is likely to recover about 1.5 trillion. And this will go a long way to boosting the resources required for the Nigerian budget and the economy. Many Nigerians probably will have lost count of how much actually a UFC is changing. There is the arms deal about 2.1 billion. There is another 643 billion. There is a third one, which is the arms deal involving the Air Force. On the one hand, there's 2 billion. There's another 29 billion naira. The Nigerian Maritime also is about 37 billion naira, while another one from the Federal Ministry of Internal Affairs, for which the former minister had been arrested, is for 676 billion. So all this put together will give you a picture of what the agency is following. But let me quickly go to a story that probably is not in our purview, but is of importance. There's a new device that has been brought to bear, for which Nigerian medical personnel have been trained. A Nigerian expert based in Ireland, his name is Dr. Oluwole Alabi. He is training medical personnel at the Lagos State University Teaching Hospital how to use a device that is called Kiwi, and it will help in the delivery of babies. With that device, cesarean section for delivery will be discarded, and it is expected that the device will assist for labor during childbirth and will also reduce child and maternal mortality.
All right, you know, there's a story by the NUC, a story on the NUC about the ranking of Nigerian universities. It's in one of the pages of the papers, but the fact that UI has asked some 97 students, you know, to leave because of poor academic performance, you know, poor academic standing. Anyway, Bayo Atoyobi, would like to thank you. That's the much we can have in the paper review segment on Good Morning Nigeria today. We'll see you on Monday. Do have a nice weekend.
Yes, I look forward to it. Thank you for having me.
We'll take a short break now. When we return, we'll deal with the rising incidence of drug and substance abuse in Nigeria.
We have always lived together as brothers and sisters. Though we speak different languages and celebrate different cultures, we were still one Nigeria. There was no bombing, there was no kidnapping, and our children were not cultists. Now, we suspect one another as there are spreads of cultism, bombing, and kidnapping. How long shall this go on? Terrorism is alien, kidnapping is criminal, cultism is barbaric. Nigeria is a blessed country. Support the Nigeria Police and the fight against terrorism, kidnapping, and cultism. Always inform the police of any incident around you. Say something when you suspect something.
Remember, we all have a stake in building a crime-free Nigeria of our dream.
This message is from the Nigeria Police Force.
You get 3 kinds of moms. The paranoid mom. It's hot and it's dirty. The cautious mom. And the Dettol mom. Only a Dettol mom knows that ordinary soaps aren't enough. She only trusts Dettol to protect her family from up to 100 illness-causing germs, which is why you can run less and love more. Don't just be any mom, be a Dettol mom. Dettol, be 100% sure.
Introducing the new Dettol 55-gram soap with the same germ protection and quality at a more affordable price. Buy the new Dettol 55-gram soap for 80 naira only. Keep your family protected from germs.
Are you aware that the death percentage attributed to Lassa fever cases is currently put at 43.2%, a figure considered very high? Lassa fever, an acute viral illness characterized by high fever, muscle aches, mouth ulcers, and bleeding in the skin, is harbored by rats and spread to humans via the urine and droppings of rats. To prevent Lassa fever, avoid any exposure with rodents, rats, as well as food and objects contaminated with rat secretions and excretions. Report all suspected cases of Lassa fever immediately to the nearest healthcare institution. Help prevent Lassa fever. This message is from the federal government of Nigeria.
You're watching Good Morning Nigeria. It's time for the backgrounder to actually lead us into a conversation proper. The rise of drug abuse in Nigeria has continued to be a major source of concern, as most of those caught up in this web of destructions are adolescents and youth. In spite of the effort by the regulatory agencies such as the NDLEA to arrest the situation, the problem appears to be far from being solved. Here's Makut Simon Macham for the details.
Drugs are substances used for medical purposes that change the state or function of the body. The assumption is that they are administered under professional guidance for the purpose of tackling health challenges. However, drugs can be abused. This happens when drugs are taken more than prescribed or without professional advice. There is also the use of illicit drugs or the use of prescription or over-the-counter drugs. This is the deliberate use of chemical substances for reasons other than intended medical purposes, and which results in physical, mental, emotional, or social impairment of the user. According to the World Health Organization, substance abuse is the harmful or hazardous use of psychoactive substances, including alcohol and illicit drugs. These illicit drugs are those that are illegal to make, sell, or use. Broadly, they are categorized as stimulants, recreational drugs, narcotics, sedatives, tranquilizers, and hallucinogens, which include things like cocaine, heroin, hydrocarbons, marijuana, alcohol, and cigarettes. Many illicit drugs are highly addictive and pose serious health risks even when taken in small doses. The question is, why do people use illicit drugs? Several reasons have been adduced for this development. They include experimental curiosity, where users are promised an experience of happiness and pleasure. There is also peer group influence, which is prevalent among teenagers and youth as they strive to conform to group norms. The lack of parental supervision also exposes teenagers and youth to pressure, which leads to their initiation into drug abuse. Some adults also engage in drug use for similar reasons, but are more likely to fund the demand or engage in promoting the distribution of illicit substances. Personality problems due to socioeconomic conditions also make adolescents vulnerable to abuse of drugs. Still, others engage in drug abuse because they need energy to work for long hours. Drug abuse leads to physical deterioration, memory lapses, short attention span, difficulty in concentration, poor physical coordination, as well as changes in behavior. Drug abuse also leads to neurological disorders, mental retardation, psychiatric complications, suicidal tendencies, sexual misconduct and abuse, irritability, exaggerated self-confidence, and so on. Prevalence rate of drug abuse in Nigeria from the records shows that the Northwest has 37.47% of drug victims in the country, while the Northwest is second with 17.32% of drug victims. The South is rated third with 13.5%, while the North Central has 11.71%. The Northeast has 8.4% of drug users in the country. The rising cases of drug abuse in Nigeria therefore means that the society is at risk of being negatively affected, as the future of the youth is also jeopardized.
All right, thank you very much there, Makut Simon Macham, for that background report. Of course, it's giving us an overview on drug use and drug abuse and the consequences. But Kano, which is one of Nigeria's cities witnessing the rising incidents of drug abuse, our correspondent has a situation report as to the efforts that are yielding results in tackling the scourge.
The high rate of drug abuse amongst youth in Kano reached an alarming proportion, as it was rated to be the highest in the country. That made stakeholders to intensify efforts towards reversing the trend. The collaborative efforts has continued to yield results as the police and other security agencies continue to record success in the war against drugs. The latest is the arrest and parade of 10 suspected drug barons with cocaine worth more than 2 billion naira and 1,068 cartons of unregistered intoxicating drugs, 32 bags and 500 parcels of Indian hemp.
As far as we are concerned, we will go all out. We will spare nobody, no matter how hard it is.
Robbery and other criminal suspects were paraded alongside the drug peddlers, where recovered vehicles, motorcycles, tricycles, international passports, livestock, bags of rice, and more than 13 million naira cash were displayed. Governor Abdullahi Umar Ganduje, who was at the event, commended the police and other security agencies for their efforts to rid the state of criminal activities.
We shall pursue these cases to all the courts of law. We shall not allow this issue to go like this.
Governor Ganduje solicited the support of the public in the war against drug abuse and criminal activities in Kano State. In Kano, Sani Basiru, NTA News.
All right, thank you very much there for that situation report from Kano. Now we have a number of guests, both here in the Abuja studios and at other locations from our network centers to discuss this problem. First, we would like to welcome a specialist in drug demand reduction and rehabilitation, and who is also founder of the Center for Youth and Family Rehabilitation, Dr. Ijeoma Chikezie. Dr. Chikezie, it's our pleasure to have you on Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody.
All right, and then representing the chairman of the NDLEA, that's the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency, is the commander for the FCT, Mrs. Chinyere Obijuru. Mrs. Obijuru, it's our pleasure to have you on the program.
Good morning, Nigeria.
Okay. And blessing here, I think we have from Lagos Network Center.
Lagos Network Studio, we are being joined by Dr. Dekun Adedeji. Is the National Coordinator of CADAM, of course, an NGO which caters for treatment and rehabilitation of drug addicts, of course, right there in Lagos. We'd like to welcome Dr. Dekun Adedeji this morning.
Good morning.
Joining us from our Kaduna Network Center is Hamza Omar, is the NDLEA commander for Kano State. We'd like to welcome you, Omar, to the program this morning.
You are welcome, Nigerians. You are welcome.
Thank you very much. Okay,
All right, let's kick off with Mrs. Chinyere Obijuru, who is standing in for the chairman of the NDLEA. Of course, we correspondents, have indicated from their various background reports what the situation is. But let's hear, as it were, from the horse's mouth. How widespread is the incidence of drug abuse, and which parts of the country are most impacted?
Like the clip preceding this talk showed, drug abuse is widespread across the whole country. It has become so alarming that even primary school children today are abusing drugs. In all parts of the country, the difference being the type of drugs being abused. For instance, in the FCT here and major cities like in the southwest and south, you have coke, crack coke, heroin. Apart from what is the most commonly abused, of course, is cannabis. And the reason it's grown in Nigeria, in all parts, it's very easy to grow cannabis. So, Oibo, as we call it, Wiwi, has different street names. That is the most commonly abused drug. Then you now have, they specialize in different regions. And then places like Kano, you have a lot of syrup and psychotropic substances being abused. In the southeast, you have heroin being abused. So different regions, different geopolitical zones have different drugs being abused, apart from the syrups and the cannabis that is widespread, which is cheaper, of course. Most people can afford to buy cannabis and the syrup.
Boys or girls who are most heavily involved?
You'll be surprised today that we even have more females involved in drug abuse, particularly in tertiary institutions. You have a lot more women, young girls, abusing drugs. So it calls for concerted efforts. You know, if we're looking at the fact that these are mothers of tomorrow and leaders of tomorrow.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Bijiri. We'll be back to you to see more of those efforts that NDLA is putting into the situation that's on our hands. Let's go over to our Kaduna Center now. Of course, we earlier introduced to us Hamza Omar, who's the NDLA commander for Kano State. Let's, of course, we just saw the clip before we started of this conversation, and Kano is said to be one of the states with the rising incidents, of course, with illicit drug use. What is on your hands there in Kano? What have you really found out that is of worrying tendencies for every one of us?
Well, that is true, but it's always good when you're talking to Nigerians. It's good to demarcate. Tell Nigerians which kind of drugs. Certainly, the root cause of this rating has to do with the kind of returns we do annually on our activities. So we tend to rank states based on the arrest and seizures. Now it's important to demarcate when you said it ranked in terms of what. Now drug has classifications. We have what is called Class A United Nations classification drugs. Drugs like the cocaine, heroin, cannabis. Then we also have the medicaments, psychotropic substances, in one side. Then we also have drugs that are naturally in these respective areas. Then we also have locally man-made drugs. Now let me explain what I mean here. Take example, in Kano you find people abusing lizard dung. It's just an excretion of a lizard. You also find people going early morning, like this early morning when they wake up, they go to toilet because of the heat and the steam. They sniff it and they come out intoxicated. You also find out that some people, because they don't have money, that they go to gutters and take. So it's always good to make this clarification. Yes, Kano is rated higher in terms of what? It's rated higher in terms of the abuse of this medicament. I'm not trying to give a sort of defense, but it's always good to tell Nigerians what is responsible for this, what is responsible for that. Now, why you find much abuse of these medicaments or over-the-counter drugs, as you can see in the overview, these are things that are easily available. These are things that are not controlled. They are meant to cure ailments. They are meant to cure disease. I'll give you an example. What is more rampant that you see both the youth, young girls, and young girls, and even married women abusing is this cough syrups. Now, this cough syrup, you find out that you can go to any shop, you can go to any street and say you are sick, you need cough syrup. Some, ironically, there is no sort of restriction control. Nobody will ask you, okay, what is the medical prescription? You go to certain medicine store, okay, I'm sick, I need cough syrup. There's no control on that. That's what is responsible for that. Then also, there are certain things that ordinarily you cannot imagine a human being can abuse it. Take example, this rubber solution that is meant to patch tires of either motor car, motorcycle, or bicycle. You find out that you find these young guys almost in every street with their handkerchief. But luckily, we're grateful to the strategies now on those things. Even those that there's no law on it, we have a sort of a religious body that preach morality, that also try those cases. You can, especially when they take these drugs and commit something serious. Now, when we talk of Kano rating, I want people to know that yes, Kano is rated higher, but in terms of this. If you look at things like hard drugs, the price, take example, a pinch of cocaine, though I hate calling price, because we all know the situation in the country. By the time you say this should cost this, there's unemployment, the youth are very, when you say that's an area that gives money. But I want to just give example. What I'm saying is that it's not much young guys that have the money to go and buy a pinch of cocaine or heroin. Though we have some discoveries now, which I know is subject to verification, that in Kano, I read it, we have 2 billion worth cocaine. It's something that calls for serious alarm and attention, and I'm sure hands will be put in the air. First of all, commend the commissioner for making this discovery, because in a state where there's no seaport, you see a big seizure like this of 2 million worth cocaine. I think that's serious attention. But I just try to make this demarcation, because it's good for Nigerians to know when they said Kano is rated higher in terms of this, in terms of what? It's rated higher in terms of these common drugs that you can find on the street, you can find in your house, toilets, solution, and all these over-the-counter drugs. It's important Nigerians know that.
All right, Bala Hamza, thank you very much for the clarification you have made. But I'm sure that some people will just be wondering whether it is, hard drug abuse, that coke, as you have said, or heroin, or just, the misuse of medicaments, as well as the inhalation of substances. What are the consequences?
There are a lot of consequences. First of all, look at the saying that leaders are the future of tomorrow. And if you look at the age grades, the age brackets of these people that abuse drugs, now in Kano we discover that even people from the age of 8, 9, 10, 12, to the age of 50. So if you look at this age grade, and they said youth are the futures of tomorrow, then probably Hamza Umar will be old, nobody will take care of him in future. But that is not even the case. The main important thing is we are now in a very difficult period of social violence, I mean crimes. Crimes of whatever angle you look at it have connection with the substance of abuse, drugs. I'll give you critical examples. Of recent, even the military, when they are fighting the war in the Northeast, you find a discovery of large quantity of this hard drugs associated with these people. Now, of recent, the Grand Commissioner of Kano, cattle wrestlers, he also discovered a lot of kilograms of cannabis associated with these people. Now, most of these accidents you see on the road, that road safety are campaigning, talking of the, you find out that it's difficult. 99% of the accidents you find out that if you test the driver, he's under influence of one drug or the other. Now, these daylight robberies, how do you imagine a rational thinking human being can come out in the daytime and block roads? They must be under the influence of something. In those days when we were children, we used to hear secret codes. Can you imagine what makes it overt now? What makes this code overt now is the activities of the abuse of these drugs. Now, as an individual, it damages your friend. At times you'll be wondering, you're going to hospital, look, I'm not producing children. It affects your heart. It affects your future as an individual. So it does a lot of things in your body. Then you find out that the major sicknesses we have in this world, not in this country, are in one way or the other connected with this drug abuse. Take example, HIV. HIV, I just watched it now and the overview. You find out all these injectors, some of them, when they don't have the money, the moment they come and meet their peer group, they just remove the needle and insert on them. Insert on their body for just them to feel something. And you find out that, take example, most of these students, some of them as young guys, useful exuberance in the class, they organize parties. Some organize these parties not for them to be happy. They have target, maybe that's a gentle girl that is morally brought up by her parents. All they do with their target, they lure them for the party. And when they enter the party, they normally put some of this substance abuse in their drinks. And when they take it, they just leave and they rape them. And when they rape them, well, if they have disease, they contact it. 2, you imagine a girl pregnant without even her knowledge. Because by the time they hit them, rape them, you will hear a lot of issues, child abuse. All this child abuse you see, they will say, oh, a 30 or 50 years old man is or has attacked a girl of 8 or 9. If you, a rational thinking normal human being that think this man is normal, why did he do that? To them, that's more than you see in 8 to 9 years. As far as he's concerned, he's well matured.
All right, thank you very much there, Mala Hamza. We'll come back to you in the course of the conversation, Blessing. Obviously, the consequences are the same. So it's immaterial, whether or not, the Southwest, or whether the substance is heroin, so whether the drug is heroin, or whether it's a cough syrup or inhalation from some odious portion.
As it should change whatever it is you
That's
do
right. So let's we wanted to ask a question of the guests we have at the Lagos Network Center.
Okay. All right, let's go over to Dr. Adedeji, right, in Lagos. Of course, you have an NGO taking a look at treatment and also rehabilitation. Of course, let's even find out what goes on in the mind of this individual, this young person whose future is gradually being eroded through the use of the different drugs, whether be they medication or any form of drugs at all. What have you seen? What kind of cases have you seen, and who are the most affected? Rich, poor, whoever?
No, I just want to thank you for putting emphasis on this issue. And I think it's high time Nigerians began to understand that we have a major drug issue. And I'm glad that the NJ people have also said that. The thing is, my colleague in the North just said, the age of use is beginning to decrease. I mean, we've seen people like 8, 9 now using drugs. We used to think it was much higher than that. Now the bracket is between like 8 to like 55 that we see. And now what is bothering us is that we begin to see a lot of young people, particularly adolescents, tertiary institutions. This is becoming worrisome. And as the lady said from the NDLA, a lot of ladies are now beginning to use drugs. And what is important is not whether one state uses more than the other, is the fact that it's become widespread. And it's become a national issue. People used to think we're a transit nation, but we now know that we're a user nation. And there's hardly any drug that you find anywhere that you don't find everywhere in Nigeria. And the sad thing is, it goes to every nook and cranny of the society. And it's so important that awareness is raised and people are made to understand. People don't think, oh, it happens to other people's children, oh, it's motor park boys. Today, people do drugs in their parents' homes, unknown, undetected, and the parents will still be there. And also this speaks to the level of interaction in families. Family breakdown is a major issue that we're beginning to see showing his hand in the causation of drug use. Even the more so because drug is so available. You can get it just about anywhere. If I step out of this studio and walk down the street, I'm sure I can get some wraps of Indian hemp. And then, so the availability of it makes it so available for people to use. And then curiosity, is it? Too many young people are doing nothing. Too many of them are not engaged. And a lot of discipline as the society is in a flux. And when that happens, you see it. And the gentleman in the North said, there is all criminal activities can be associated with drug use. The drivers, the accidents, and all the things you see. And for me, for MTA to now raise an awareness about this at this point in time is critical, and I think there must be a collective response to it. It is not about NDLA. NDLA cannot do it alone, I can bet you. The thing is that NDLA now needs to work with a lot of other parties. Are they working with the churches? Are they working with the institutions? Will they be working with the RNT, the road traffic people? It has become a situation that NDA cannot just say, this is the way to work. And it has to be collective and even interministerial in terms of Nigerian getting involved. The nation must take it as a serious matter that we have the drug issue. If we're not careful, down the line, 5 years down the line, there'll be no young person to take positions of responsibility. If you go around today in the banks, in every institution, you will find people using drugs, no matter their level. So it's not a matter of status, about, small. Even judges, even lawyers, even doctors, even lawyers. Just imagine, there's no profession that is exempted from use of drugs. And I think NDLA also needs help. People used to think that it's the job of NDLA. There's a major area of NDLA that needs to be propped there, which is the DDR area. And I think a lot of finance must be provided for NDLA. The interdiction is good, but one thing we must know that interdiction helps in stopping supply to other people. But what about in Nigeria? What happens with drugs that are taken out? They're consumed. So we need to begin to look at internal consumption, and all we need to do as a nation to stem the tide of drug use.
All right, Dr. Adedeji, thank you very much. We'll come back to you in the course of the conversation. Of course, incidentally, we have, as one of our guests, we introduced her earlier on, Dr. Ijeoma Chikezie. She's a specialist in drug demand reduction and rehabilitation. Dr. Chikezie, you've listened to the other guests. Now, it would appear that the drugs and substances are commonly available. Is it a losing battle to seek to reduce the availability of these drugs and substances?
Yeah, thank you. I want to state categorically that drug abuse is a great problem to Nigeria that affects every facet of the individual, the family, the society. And a lot that is being done has not really addressed the individuals who are using the drugs. I believe that counseling, treatment and rehabilitation is a greater part of drug demand reduction. And it helps to reduce the effects upon others who want to engage in drug abuse. In my practice as a counselor and a rehabilitation officer, I saw cases that you see families devastated, families who have sold all things that they ever had to recover one person. Because once a member is affected, the entire family is affected. It's not only affecting the individual, it's affecting the family, it's affecting the society. The security problems that Nigeria is experiencing today cannot be divulged from the drug abuse persons in Nigeria. The armed robbery that we experience every day, we can't sleep and close our eyes, are related to the greater percentage of youths that are abusing drugs in Nigeria. We might be doing well in the interdiction, but a lot has to be done in recovering those that are already dependent on drugs. And that's an area that Nigeria needs to focus more attention on.
How do you recover these persons? Because you say that counseling and rehabilitation are critical in drug demand reduction. So how do you recover them?
Yeah, a drug-dependent person actually has lost touch with reality of self. Because in the first instance, a drug person, I mean, a normal, psychologically balanced person cannot indulge in drugs. So for the person who is indulging in drugs, has lost touch with with his person, has lost touch with his environment, and has no thought of tomorrow. So to recover such persons, there has to be a knowledge-based data that tells you this is what this individual is going through. This is what this person is dealing with. And then approach to recovery is naturally eclectic because it's a multifaceted problem. And then a multifaceted approach. There's no one bullet that says, this is how I recover this person. But then you have to do a lot of study of the individual circumstances, starting from the home, starting from the job, starting from society. A lot of persons in the home are rejected. A lot of children in home come from dysfunctional homes where the father is abusing the mother, where the mother is not living with the father. you look at it, this culture thing of divorce and separations and everything. So I had several cases of students whose parents were not living together. And because these children cannot face the parents and say, this is what you're doing against my mother, this is how you are treating us in this home, they cannot fight them. All they do is go look for solace in drugs. Our friends tell them, groups, this social peer pressure thing, and they say, come, we tell you what to do to be able to face your father. One told me specifically that I feel like killing him, but I cannot stand him, so I got to do drugs to be able to face him and tell him the truth. So these are indications that family is at the root of drug problems in Nigeria. Parents are not doing what they ought to do. The internet pharmacy is on daily, and children are busy pinging. We don't know what they are doing, but they are doing this, and they are ordering their drugs from the internet. Our post offices are open. The courier services are open. They are not controlled. They are not looking out for these drugs. There's one particular incident where a student, let me save the university's name, that came to me and said, all of us here order our drugs from abroad on the internet, and we get them through the courier service. So when these drugs come, they distribute within themselves in the schools, in the university. And of course, this particular drug called Rohypnol, it's a sedative drug, and they use it for rape. I had one client who told me that this drug, they just slip it in a girl's drink, and that's it. Then they can have a feel of it, especially when they have their rave parties and all that. So I believe that a major thing that Nigeria should do is to start organizing or rebuilding community-based rehabilitation homes.
Okay, well, Dr. Chikezi, I'm sure we'll come to the specifics. First of all, I mean, it's useful to have perhaps a broad view of the extent of rehabilitation facilities, counseling facilities that are available in the country, and if there are gaps, how we fill those gaps.
And also, in addition to that, even before they get to this stage of even doing these drugs, like you've pointed out from the homes, what do we need to do actually alongside NDLE and other bodies that are actually poised to actually take care of this situation? Okay, well, of course, we are being joined by another guest this time around from our Just Network Center. We have Dr. Moses Audu. He's a consultant psychiatric, of course, from the University of Jos Teaching Hospital. We'd like to welcome you, Dr. Audu, to the program this morning.
Thank you very much.
I'm sure while you were trying to get ready for us to join you, you could have listened to the different points being made by all the guests, but from here, Abuja, Lagos, and also our Kaduna Center. What exactly have you been attending to, and how really worrisome is it becoming for professionals like you to actually look into such cases of drug abusers and also other forms of illicit drug abuse generally?
Yes, I attend to all cases of drug abuse, and as the earlier speakers said, most of them are young men, and the common drugs that they abuse in Jos or on the plateau are things like tramadol, pentazocine, and then they take codeine in cough syrup, and then some of them have heroin. Those of them who are rich go for cocaine and, of course, marijuana. And most of them are between the ages, truly, between the ages of 15 to 50, majority. But as I said earlier on, most of them started right from their junior secondary school when they were about 9, 12, thereabouts. And by the time they got to 15 years old, then that was when the parents actually noticed that they were on drugs, and then the problem started. And usually they have to write maybe WAEC, and they fail to write the exam, or they fail woefully, then the parents begin to find out what actually happened. They discover that they have been on drugs for years.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Audu. Of course, we'll get back to you still taking a look at the manifestation of such individuals, because we really need to know once your child or ward starts doing drugs, what are those telltale signs that really needs to be visited. Okay, let's get back to Dr. Adedeji in Lagos. Of course, like we pointed out, some of the cases that you might have seen, of course, ranging from the different ages. But from the home, of course, there are situations that the parents need to see. They might not be there, but what are those telltale signs that my child or ward is doing drugs, or something odd is actually happening that I need to watch out for?
You see, thank you. The thing is, parents now need to be very observant. We're very careless about watching our children. When you see a child that used to be very obedient begins to get recalcitrant, he begins to play truancy from school, he begins to change in his demeanor, he's aggressive, he's rude, he doesn't take care of himself anymore, he begins to lock up his room, and then he puts privacy, and then begins to play very loud music in the house, or begins to use very strong perfume, begins to wear dark glasses even within the premises of the house, and not even only that, and he begins to take heavy menthol sweet, because that is to cover up the smell of those things. Or sometimes he says to you, look, my room, he's always spraying his room with insecticide just to suppress the smell. And then now today, you see, because of the opportunity of experimentation, they now take what is called skunk. Skunk is perfumed marijuana, kind of. It's a mixture of marijuana with the dry leaves of pawpaw that is ground, and then we cook it. And because it is chemicalized, it doesn't have the regular smell. The thing is, just be observant about your kid. You take a kid to school, the school tells you the kid has not come to school. What he has done is that the moment you drop him, he's gone back home. Parents just need to wake up. You know, the major thing, I hear my colleagues talk about parents. We can't take too many things away from the parents. Because of economic pursuit of making money, we leave our home. We don't even see our children until weekend, and when weekend comes, we have parties. Who takes care of these kids? Even in the homes, the drivers, the maid guards, the domestics, they supply drugs to our kids without our knowledge. Because these kids, they don't go out, but they get it. The thing that I'm just saying is, parents should be very observant, because it is not see one and see everything. There are all kinds of ways in which these things can manifest. But those are just a few of them that we just need to watch out. If we not, before you know, your child, you just find out it becomes unkempt, it doesn't care about a personal hygiene. Somebody that puts on his shoes and is very neat and fastidious about his dressing, he begins to get careless. He puts on bathroom slippers because he says there's nothing wrong with my way of dressing. And then we begin to watch our children, men, boys putting on earrings, putting all kinds of hairstyle, and we think he's hip. Or somebody put on his trousers and he calls it sagging. And I say to them, look, sagging is the prison uniform. It's the prison fashion, culture. It is not a normal. Those are things you think they're stubborn. When you see a child stubborn, watch him very carefully. The only thing the child is saying is announcing to you, I need help. So don't just say this child is stubborn and then you leave him. The thing is, how many of us have any relationship with our children? How many of us discuss with our children before we take decisions on their future? Because you're a parent, you think you know what is best for them. The lady, Mrs. Chikere, said something. I saw a child 2 days ago who said to his father, you're a stupid man. I'm going to kill you. And I said to the father, don't think he's joking. He will do it. Because there is something that is wrong. A child comes to the father and says, look, a guy told me I would have preferred to read biochemistry. My father said I should read geology, and for me that was huge. And I hated him for it, and I was waiting. And you know, when they now take drugs, they get used to this. One day he will carry out his threat. We cannot be too careful about our children. And I think all these things come straight back to the home. Parents must sit down, spare time to spend time with their children. Many of the times what we do, we bribe them. We buy them cars, we take them for summer holiday, we buy them expensive gifts. They don't need all those. It's not that they don't need it. They need you more than they need those gifts. So when you do that, you don't know what they do. Many of these children, as the lady said, they begin to, on the internet, they buy these drugs. Many avenues. That's why I said, look, there is not one way of curtailing this. It has to be a collective way. We must sit down with every avenue of possibility of use and then curtail it and then work together. If we don't do that, believe me, what we'll be seeing very soon is many children beating up their parents, destroying their homes, and destroying our nation. It is so bad that the time has come for us to sit down. It is not, we shouldn't, all this tokenist attitude, oh, let's talk about growth. I've asked people, let's say for instance in NTA, is there a table in charge of it that can do like a survey, that can do an undercover, that can check what is happening in the various areas of Lagos, not necessarily to criminalize or to stigmatize people, but to get to the root cause of how to deal with these things. Because today, our children will hide this thing from us. So the ultimate of what I'm saying is observation. You know your child. You know what you have noted with your child over the years. What is the deviant activity that you are beginning to notice? Has it begun to lie? Is it beginning to steal from the house? And you think it's the housemaid, you think it's the driver, and you don't think it's your son? You better check all those things. So for me to go into, is an array of possibilities of what you can see. And so it's important for us as a nation to begin to take cognizance. Look, General Buhari in 1983 knew the significance of drugs. You can imagine 1983, not to talk of 2016. Just manage the years and understand what has done in the in-between. It is a huge problem. And our children need help. Our young people need help. Many of them, one of the things that I said in the university that I've gone to speak, why don't you look at the age of admission? Why we are letting 14-year-old, 15-year-old go to the university to go and do what? And they pass out at 18 to do what? There's no mental maturity apart from physical maturity, and we're expecting to perform. Those are the issues we need to begin to put on the table and to look at.
All right, Dr. Adedeji, again, thank you very much for your elaborate reaction to the questions that we have asked. Obviously, we have some tweets already. I'm sure you can see the Twitter handle on the screen at NTA GMA. A number of tweets have come in. We'll take some of them. But listen, just to ride on the points articulated by Dr. Adedeji, I would like Dr. Chikizie to also respond to this. Now, there is a call. I mean, that's you can hear it in his voice, you can see it in his expression, and you also indicated that families have to be aware. We have to have functional families. We don't have to have dysfunctional parenting. Now, from the experiences, now, if drug abuse, substance abuse is so widespread in the country, is it that parents are nursing private agonies and they are not coming out in the open to share their experiences with others? How then do we overcome this private agony phase that indeed is not helping us, as it were, in dealing with the scourge?
Thank you, Kingsley. Families are really agonizing silently, both the rich and the poor. Both the rich and the poor. When I was in FCT Abuja here as a DDR officer, I heard it from the top. And what do they want to do? They want to protect their names. What do they want to do? They want to say, my political career, my this, my family name. Some mothers will come to you and say, please, oh, it's not my child. They deny. Families are in denial. A lot are ignorant of what Dr. Adedeji has said, the telltale signs of what their children are doing. A lot of them, we are Africans, we believe in juju, we believe in one witch is doing me. I say, who did I do? Who is doing me? That is what the cry of mothers. I have two that I'm dealing with right now who says, my neighbor gave my son madness. So how can your neighbor give your son madness? Your son has done drugs and is suffering from mental derangement. That's the cause of the drugs that he has taken. Parents are living in denial. Instead of looking for solutions, they are looking for sympathy. They come to you, they tell you that everything I have, everything I'm worth, you see, I spent so much money, I've gone to this rehab, I've gone to that rehab. In fact, all my money, all my gold, someone told me all my gold, I have sold all that I have. In fact, this wrapper I came here with, I had to borrow it. So they bemoan what they have lost. But the future of that giant, they don't care about that. So I think parents should look back and look at the upbringing they give to the children. We are more concerned with going to look for bread to feed a child that we are not there to take care of. And these children, when they don't get attention, one told me, he said, what happens if you are the boss in the house? If you are the one taking care of yourself, and if you don't have anybody giving you instruction and you're the boss and you're free to do whatever. Today mommy is in US, tomorrow daddy is in that place, and nobody is giving you instruction. What do you do?
So he instructs himself.
So you instruct yourself. So early dictation and early intervention helps saves a soul.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Chikeze. We'll take some of those tweets now. Another angle we'd like to explore. We've talked about over-the-counter drugs that people just go to purchase. We'd like to see what NDLA is doing in that direction, because definitely people just go to take some of these medicaments. And really, there's no running away from the fact that people will just go and buy, even when they're not prescribed for that. We'll take a look at that, both from here and also what Kanu is doing alongside in that direction. Abdulmajid Lawan says, uncompleted or completed and abandoned buildings are the major station for drug abusers, or for people who are actually doing drugs there. Then for Sani, Michael Omakoji says drug abuse is prevalent because some social role models patronize it and often portray it as a social way of life. So many people also go into drug abuse prior to bad influence, orientation from parents, and frustration like unemployment.
Ibrahim Tudu tweets, abuse of narcotics and other intoxicants may not be unconnected with efforts by some countries to legalize marijuana as medication. Why is it that nowadays beer parlors dotted all around us are no longer seen as abuse centers and seem to be legalized trade centers? That's one of the tweets that we have. But let's go back now to the guests again to continue with the conversation. I can see Mrs. Obijiru nodding while Dr. Chikeze was speaking with regard to the parental function in the situation that the country finds itself now.
Very true. Unfortunately, most parents really have abdicated their responsibilities to house helps in the quest for looking for daily bread. So when incidences of drug abuse occur, like she said, most parents live in denial. And when they come to you, by the time they come to you, the child has become so bad, sometimes running into mental illness from drug use of maybe 10 years. And they will tell you, like she says, oh, my village people, my enemy, you know, we've gone to church, we've prayed, they've told us it is so and so. And then we're not even very particular about what is it about this, my child? There's something different. About 2 days ago, I was speaking with a parent who has a child dependent on drug. And I said, what is the drug of abuse of your child? And he says to me, I don't know. Because I said, is it syrup? Is it cannabis? Are they tablets? He says, I don't know. But I know he's abusing drugs. So we have to take some interest.
And responsibility.
And responsibility. We must take some interest. We have had people who drop their children close to school, in front of their school gate. As they move, these children have left to go to abandoned buildings where they smoke and take drugs the whole day. We don't even know if our children are in school. We don't go back to ask their teachers, how are my children doing? What's this my child? How is this child doing? Because the society, maybe we've changed, it's evolved. In the earlier days, everybody in the neighborhood, all the children belong to this community. So if anything was going wrong, somebody will correct your child even before you get home. And if who are you to go and complain that somebody beat you for something? So you even did this and they beat you, you will get more beating.
That's right.
These days.
Yes.
Okay, all right. So Bijo, of course, Mr. Bijo will definitely get back to you now. Let's move over to Kaduna now, where we have Malam Amza Omar, of course, as the commander there from Kano. Of course, between October and December 2015, we have it on record that illicit drugs, about 5 billion naira, were confiscated and burnt in Kano. Of course, that is last January. Well, the feat was achieved, no doubt. But there seems to be this growing trade in illicit drugs, which is very, of course, very obvious across the country, not just Kano now. What is a body like NDLEA doing to actually stem this tide? It is a worrisome situation for both NDLEA and other people who are into this drug business of rehabilitating the users.
Like what the other speakers said, we do communal approach. But before that, we have two enforcement methods. Number one, we try as a service to use our offices that are meant for that. Then we also have a task force created by the state government that is chaired by my humble self. Then we have the police, we have the SSS, we have the road safety, we have the immigration, we have the HISBA, all security agencies and non-security agencies that have to do with people. Then on the other side, we have another task force that deals with fake and counterfeit drugs, because these things go hand in hand. Going back to the issue you raised, yes, that 5 billion worth drugs was a research made by this second task force, fake and counterfeit drugs task force. But for me, honestly, you wouldn't have had worth 5 billion. Because I try to avoid, you will hear tongues, they have done this. I try to avoid these billions. Now what do? We go back to what the other speakers said. We do communal approach. How do we do it? We try in our own approach to control the situation. We try to involve the traditional rulers. We try to involve also the ulamas, imams. We try to involve the churches. We try to involve associations of school principals. We try to involve associations of school teachers. Then we discover something at the cost of our operations. You find out that you find a group that deals in it, like they sell it for the purpose of making money. Then you find there are users, the people that Dr. Chikeze called patients. Then you also find out that some people voluntarily, as one of the speakers said, the rich also cry. They do. You see them, because part of the conditions, you don't just go to bring somebody for counseling. Unless you go for operations and you find him there, you discover he needs counseling then. But now in Kano, we are lucky. We have had this positive response. You see people bringing their children to the extent that while we have them in custody, the isolated place, they have to wait on queue. What was responsible for this? They discovered that among the ones we treated, like last year I know, we treated 57. And as a result of follow-up, we discovered that only 2 went back and do what they call relapse. Then we also try to involve this digital group, neighborhood society. Just as you said, if you look at the history of this country, before, security is not left for the security agencies alone. Community, neighbors. If there's a visitor today, either the district head or the village head, or they know that's a visitor, and this is the kind of visitor, and he lived in this man's house. Now, the same approach is what we adopted now in Kano. I will tell you, like about a week ago, we endorsed into what we call Operation Clean. It's because of what this Operation Clean, I didn't say Ellendale offices, no. We look at these associations in the respective wards and areas. We brought them, we meet with them, we said, okay, we are going to mix up with the officers. You know these people. You live with them. We want to learn this operation clean to know what are the areas, who and who sell it. I can bet you will find out from your famous in Kano, it has yielded a lot of results. Because you find it very difficult now to even get these drugs. And from the time Kano is rated to this level, you find out we have a reduction of more than 60%. Because we involve the community. Not only we involve the community in go around the town to see what is happening, no. We involve the community because they talk to them when it's Sunday in the church, and they talk to them on their Friday sermons. So these are the approach we are doing. Then we also discuss among security agencies. Look, like what Dr. Marcus Jola said, we can't do this alone. Anybody that tells you he can do drug job or NDLA job alone or control drug use and trafficking alone has not started. Because first of all, how many officers do we have even in NDLA? We are not more than 5,000.
All right, Malam Hamza, thank you very much. We'll come back to you. Let's go back again to Lagos. Dr. Adedeji, you listened to what Malam Hamza was saying in terms of multi-level intervention to seek to reduce the incidence of drug abuse, religious organizations and so on and so forth. From your experience with CADAM, where do you think you need additional support in seeking to deal with this problem? Already we've talked about the family, that's basic. But in terms of other institutional support, where else do you think we need to look at?
Very much. I like what Hamza has said, but this has to be institutionalized in the sense that if you look at it, there was a time, are we using the media enough? Are we getting them involved in this war? Is there any newspaper in this country that has a drug section that can get us statistics, that can get us experiences, and then that can be used? The thing is, I remember many years ago, Lola Fanikaude, she did a clip on TV that was very good. I've forgotten the name of it now. I think it was Mind-Bending. And it was, can we get an organization, a corporate body to sponsor, instead of all these Indian films and all this African magic, can we have a program on TV that speaks to advocacy? That is one. Are we involving the traditional rulers in a sense of statewide or corporately? Are we involving the churches? Are we involving the mosques? They are the ones who see these people one-on-one. I have said to the universities that I've spoken, do they have guidance counseling unit? Is there a parents forum in which there's an interface? And do we also have a student union forum in which not just a union to talk about aluta, but about getting into these problems? It is multifaceted. And if we do not do this and connect everybody, even as I speak about NDLA, I think NDLA should be restructured in a manner that there's an equal participation in interdiction and also in DDR activities. I've worked with NDLA for a long time. They hardly have materials to give to NGOs. They don't even have materials to go out to go. They don't have the resources to do the advocacy. They need to be helped. All these things must be put in place. If the government is truly serious about stemming this issue of drugs, it has to be, even at interministerial, Ministry of Education has to be involved, social, youth and sports must be involved, justice and at every level. And I've said to users who are the victims of drugs, should they be stigmatized? Should they be criminalized? It is not right. I think the university, instead of rusticating them, they must give them the benefit of graduated punishment scale. If a person is caught first time, do you get them into guidance counseling, and then do you then say to them, and then give them room? So you don't send them, and you send them when they go to another university. They go and do the same. I've seen undergraduates that have been to 4 universities solely because of where they get admitted. We need to get serious about this. It's a chain, and the chain is as strong as its weakest link. If we do not do this in a manner that is all-consuming and affecting every facet, we will just be touching it like somebody cutting grass, and then the grass will grow again. We really get to go fundamental about this. What are the issues involved here? And what do we need to do? For me, you know what the international organizations do is this. They give you a lot of material, a lot of resources to stem supply to their countries. But they don't help you about, they help you in interdiction, and then they salute you for doing so much. But how much do they contribute into local use, into advocacy, into helping the nation to stem the use, the demand that is in the nation? If we don't do this, we need also to come together as a country. Every facet, the newspapers, the TV, and I mean, how much work can the psychiatric hospitals do? Psychiatric hospitals are supposed to deal with cases that have psychiatric undertones. What about those who are solid drugs, who are now being treated in psychiatric hospitals? I don't think that is a proper perspective. If somebody is solely using drugs, why should he be taken to a psychiatric hospital and then is given chlorpromazine and then he's put on Lagardère, and then again he becomes dependent on those and becomes a vegetable in living his life? We must treat them as, it should be treated as a public health issue. It's just like somebody who has hypertension, and then we take it that way. One thing that will help us to take away this stigmatization is when big families come out and say, look, my child has an issue, and I'm willing to let the world know. Look at what Professor Ransom Kuti did during the time of HIV/AIDS. It was when he came, he demystified AIDS. We need to demystify drug use, not to the extent that we see that these boys are area boys, and no, that's not the way to do it. That's not. We need to work together.
Dr. Adedeji, thank you very much there. I mean, the example of Fela you cited, of course, is quite apt in terms of getting the public to really appreciate the magnitude of HIV/AIDS, and when Fela died of Kaposi sarcoma in 1997. Well, that's a point Dr. Adedeji raised, and I would like the NDLEA officer, who's also commander for the FCT and sitting in for the chairman, to respond to this. Yes, it would appear that, of course, the NDLEA was founded because, you know, we had support from the DAE, that's the U.S. Entity, and it would be appeared also that the NDLEA also receives support from time to time. But Dr. Adedeji has made a point. The support that you get is to enable you stem supply to their own countries. Do you then get support to deal with local use of drugs in Nigeria? Mrs. Obijiru.
Yes. I want to show you this document now, which is the National Drug Control Master Plan for 2015 to 2019. Like Dr. Adedeji spoke, he talked about a balanced approach between law enforcement and DDRD, and that is what this document basically is about. It's a balanced approach. And the master plan is, we have international collaborators, the UNODC and the EU funding this program to a large extent, with support from the Nigerian government, of course. And the essence of this master plan is to strengthen drug response in the country, to enhance our health, physically, the security of the nation, and general well-being of the Nigerian citizen. And the document, we have collaborated with all segments of the society. We had the media, the traditional rulers, the other security agencies, other organizations, NGOs who have one thing or the other, all segments of the society, to do with the issue of drugs. So now we have started on this master plan, and that is part of what we're hoping to do. Advocacy is part of it. So we want everybody to key in to this master plan. That's the only way it can work. It's not every Nigerian. There is a role for everybody, all stakeholders. All stakeholders. There is a role for everybody.
I'm sorry, Mrs. Obidi, let's be specific. The question I asked had to do with funding on the basis of what Dr. Adedeji said. Look, you need funding to drive advocacy. You need funding for interdiction and so on and so forth. Do you get support from corporate organizations for this purpose? Do you get support from state governments? Do you get support from local governments? These are specific stakeholders.
Yes, we do get some support from some state governments, some local government, some individuals. We do get some level of support. We could get a lot more. We hope to get a lot more. That is why we're doing what we're doing. As we speak out and and people understand that this is a public health issue. Drug abuse is a public health issue. It is not criminality. So as people understand that, then they know that they key in to this program to help the generality of the public. Because before, most people just think that, oh, NDLEA, it's you're just arresting people and taking them to prison. But that is not it. That is not it. That's why I said this is a balanced approach now. We understand that the way forward really is to deal with drug demand reduction issues. Okay. And that is people living with drugs.
All right, but there's another point that we raised in the course of this conversation, and Dr. Chikezie, of course, is into rehabilitation and counseling. Do we have enough counseling and rehab centers in the country?
That's a big challenge. It's a big question. When Dr. Adedeji was talking, I know he's of Kadam. Kadam is one of them. But there was a time in 2012 when NDLEA tried listing rehab homes. I think that project was with UNODC. But we found out that many of them are into advocacy, education. Very few are into counseling, actually, and very, very few in rehabilitation. Rehabilitation, I think it's recently that I learned, I'm retired. Recently I learned that there is a knowledge-based approach, a standardized approach for treatment and rehabilitation of drug-dependent persons, anchored by NDLEA and UNODC too. So, but there are actually very few. What we have basically in Nigeria are hospital treatments. We treat drug with drugs. And I am angry when they say they are treating drugs with drugs. That's a special area anyway. It's for another time. But they are actually few. The numbers are few. In NDLEA site, it's only 21 listed, and only 2 are doing actual rehabilitation.
All right. Well, that's the much we can take on this very interesting conversation. We had a number of tweets. We are unable to take them, but some of the key ones that we've read, the guests have all responded to them. We'd like to go to our Lagos Network Center to thank the National Coordinator for CADAM. It's an NGO that caters for the treatment and rehab of drug addicts. That's Dr. Adedeji. Dr. Adedeji, thank you very much for your participation in our discussion this morning.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
And then from our Kaduna Network Center, we're joined by Malam Hamza Umar. He's the NDLEA commander. He was at the Kaduna Network Center for the conversation. Thank you very much for being with us this morning. And then also from Jos, we had a consultant psychiatrist from the Jos University Teaching Hospital, Dr. Moses Audu. Dr. Moses Audu, thank you for being with us on the program this morning.
My pleasure.
And Blessing, sign off the ladies.
Okay, all right. Ladies to ladies, right? All right, I'd like to say a big thank you to Dr. Ijeoma Chikezie. Of course, she's a specialist in drug demand reduction and rehabilitation, and she also founded our Center for Youth and Family Rehabilitation Center. Thank you for joining us. Thank you. Also, like to say thank you to the representative of the chairman, NDLEA. She's also the commander for the FCT, Command Mrs. Chinyere Obijuru. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you very much. It's been my pleasure. Okay,
this is Good Morning Nigeria. Of course, we'll take a break at this point to bring some messages. Earlier, I think part of our news item, we talked about Sodiolise resigning. What's in it? How true it is? Well, our sports correspondent will be joining us to talk about this after this break.
Nigerians. Suicide bombers are not spirits. They are not ghosts. They are human beings like you and me. They live amongst us. They are your neighbors. They are your friends today, but terrorists tomorrow. So you must know your neighbor now. Security begins with you and me. Know your neighbor. Be vigilant. Be security conscious. Report suspicious persons, objects, and movements to the police and other security agencies. The security of our nation is a duty for you and me.
If you see something, say something. Nigeria, unite against terrorism. This message is brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
taste the nectar of paradise. Chi exotic nectar in pineapple, coconut, multifruta, and other exotic flavors. The taste will take you there. Chi exotic nectar, escape to paradise.
From the House of Chi.
All righty, welcome back to Good Morning Nigeria, reaching you live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. Now, the news out there this morning is that the Super Eagles chief coach Sunday Olise has quit his job. Of course, we read that out from one or two of the papers this morning during our newspaper review segment. Our sports correspondent, Fisayo Ogunfuye, is right here with us in the studios. Fisayo, what information do you have? Has Olise really quit? And if so, what does this mean?
I first want to start, on the comic blue, because it seems as if when there is a sack and employment, that's when Uncle Kingsley invites me. But
I'm sorry. No, Fisayo, you covered the World Cup for us in 2014, and we had you live on many occasions in Good Morning Nigeria. So,
but the truth of the matter is that we must give kudos to Sunday Olise for being a brave man. And this is something that is unprecedented. Hardly do you see a Nigerian coach come to quit his job, but he's come out to say that, if I quote him, he says he feels fortunate and blessed and eternally grateful for having had the honor to play, captain, and coach this great nation of ours, Nigeria. And he says, due to contract violations, lack of support and unpaid wages, benefits to his players, assistant coaches, and himself, he resigns as the Super Eagles coach. Now, where do we go from here? The three heads of the Nigerian Football Federation at the moment are in Zurich trying to do a few things in the ballot and all that because the Congress is already on in Zurich and they are coming in as we speak. But they don't know that a bigger fire is right here in Nigeria, because we are in less than about 3 weeks now. We will be playing perhaps the most important match in the Nigerian football calendar for the year. And that is when we play the Pharaohs of Egypt, who have consistently showed that there are no easy pies when it comes to African football. The team is, gathering momentum. And a lot of people have said, snide remarks though, that perhaps Olise looked at the calculation and he knew that the Pharaohs may have planned to have the Eagles for lunch, and it was better to bow out at this time.
Well, Fisayo, that would seem to be a blow below the belt. But I'm just wondering, what does this mean? Because at the senior level, we're having this high turnover, as it were. Stephen Keshi was there immediately before Sunday Olise had a running battle. His contract wasn't extended, and on and on. And take this against the background of the earlier advocacy that we wanted Nigerian indigenous coaches to actually be at the helm of affairs. Is this coming apart?
Well, it seems to me as if the NFF is not well knit together administratively and in terms of their plans and calendar. They seem to rely on the coaches to submit programs and all. The NFF itself needs to have its own plan and where it wants Nigerian football to be. We've brought Sunday Olise in, fantastic players in his day, but he doesn't have anything on his CV to show that he could manage one of the biggest national teams in the world. At the time, when he was playing, it was number 5 in the world in 1994. Now, it's out of the top 50. And that is what we are facing at the moment. And it's just like the Argentine experience. They brought Diego Armando Maradona, perhaps the greatest player to have ever, laced his boot. And it was a disaster as a coach. It doesn't translate. That you are a great player doesn't mean you'll be a successful manager, because it's beyond tactics. It's managing players, having the temperament to withstand some of these pressures from outside, being able to charm the sporting press, and being able to articulate what you want to do in the best possible manner. And I feel that as a Nigerian, perhaps he could have waited until after the match, because he's leaving us at a very, very delicate time that the team can completely disintegrate. He could have waited just 1 month. After that, then throwing it over, we have enough time to gather momentum again for the subsequent matches. But this is the biggest match this year.
Fisayo, fine, I agree with you, and I'm sure a number of our viewers will also agree with you. But some persons have also raised the concern. You said Olise is the first person to have taken the bold step of exiting rather than waiting to be fired. Some persons are already talking about patriotism. Why is it that, Olisa is not a stranger to Nigeria, he's a Nigerian. The Egyptians have been coached by former Egyptian stars, and you can see the successes they have recorded. Brazil also coached by Brazilians, and so on and so forth. So where does patriotism lie in all of this?
Yeah, well, like I touched, it's very important. It's very important, and you're talking about Hassan Shehata and Mahmoud El Gouari. They are those two coaches, perhaps midwife the biggest era of Egyptian dominance in the continent. But in Olisa's case, he is a unique person because, unfortunately, he is bowing out just the way he bowed out as a player, controversially. Just at the time when we were about to go to the World Cup, he was rude to a minister, and how that led to the, some partial disbandment of that generation of players, talented players, and they allowed the young guns to go for the 2002 Japan-Korea World Cup. Now he's come back as a coach, and he's leaving at a very delicate time. He doesn't do much for his CV, especially for his next job. He should have perhaps waited, but we understand that things that have happened behind the scenes may have pushed him, to a point of no return. And we need to also say this concerning the Nigerian Football Federation, especially the president. There's a difference between being an Arsenal fan and being the president of the Nigerian Football Federation. You can't just on a whim employ perhaps the most important job in Nigerian football. You have to bring in, people who know about this game, and they can perhaps vet the process and then bring in somebody to emerge. Because, of course, there's a coach in Samson Siasia who went to Senegal, complained about all these things, wages and all that, and still resiliently showed the Nigerian spirit and brought back the cup from Senegal. So that's the kind of person.
But Fisayo, we also have the same problem with Siasia as Super Eagles chief coach. I mean, when he couldn't qualify the country, I mean, everybody said, look, let this guy let his head roll. And his head rolled. Then a
lot of us have repented, and we have continued to say that he should return because he never lost a match. Sometimes there's something about Nigeria. We want the quick results. But we have showed that, there are guys in the country who perhaps put the country first. And we've seen that in many coaches, including kudos must go to Emmanuel Amunike. They didn't get a dime in Chile. I was there in Chile. They didn't get a single penny from the FA. They were being taken by FIFA boss from left. The boys could not shop. Yet, they won the tournament. That's the Nigerian spirit. We can't continue to say the system is bad, but think of the nation first. As an example to others, you have been given a chance, 160-something million to represent us. For God's sake, give the country kudos for even, employing you in the first place.
All right, Fisayo Ogunfoyi, thank you very much.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me.
Let's go to the Nigerian Palace. We say, now that one they go chop. Wow. But the patriotism, definitely, we have to take a look at what is really happening. Well, even as the situation gets easy, let's see how much of it that we can unbundle to actually make sure that the boys go to actually do their job in 1 month's time. Thank you very much, Fisayo, from our sports desk, joining us this morning to take a look at the resignation of Sunday Olise. A quick look at the weather situation for the rest of the day, and we'll wrap it up on the program.
On the weather segment, there has been respite from the dust that had engulfed the country in the last 48 hours, and so improved horizontal visibility is expected across many cities within the country, except for the central states where one or more places would experience low visibility. The inland cities of the south would have intervals of sunny and cloudy conditions, while the coast will be cloudy. And as we progress into the day, the southern half of the country would have some isolated cases of showers, except for areas around Enugu, Ikom, Abakaleke, and Ogoja, where partly cloudy skies would prevail. For the central cities and the north, conditions will remain about the same. For temperatures across selected cities, let's have a look. From the Nigerian Meteorological Agency, bye for now and see you again.
Okay, thank you very much, Joyce Mara there. Yes, for us, it's been a very wonderful day on Good Morning Nigeria. Let's do it again on Monday, 7 a.m. My name is Blessing Abu. We'll see you about then. Do have a productive weekend.
I'm Kingsley Osadolo. Thank you also for starting your day with us. And as Blessing said, I wish you all a lovely weekend. Before then, a nice day.